Hello, Aerin. I'm delighted to be chatting with a fellow author and a fellow author soon to be with my own publisher, Luna Eden Press.
Hi, yes, yes, indeed. Yes, it's all very exciting, isn't it?
It is, yeah, as I say, I'm delighted to be chatting with you. You're based over in the east of England. Is that sort of Hull way, maybe Norfolk area?
East Anglia, yes,
East
up at the
Anglia.
border.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, lovely sunny part of the world at the moment. A bit
excellent.
warm though, really for me. It's especially last weekend.
Oh yeah, I can
Bit too
imagine.
hot.
It's a muggy in Liverpool. It's sort of a bit close the way I
Is it?
describe it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
sort of a
yeah,
bit of
it
oppressive.
is here.
Yeah.
Mm. It's not so bad when the heat's dry, is it? It's when it's so humid that it's so unpleasant.
Yeah, and there's a nice breeze coming in, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's what we
helps.
need.
It do, yeah, yeah. But listen, we're going to focus on your writing, Aaron. But before we talk about your writing, tell me what you do to relax for fun, hobby-wise. Archery, I've read.
Yes, yes. I've done some archery in the past. We've had a lot of fun with that. It's actually also been very useful for writing purposes too, because
Oh,
my books are fantasies. I tend to end up with swords and bows and arrows involved. So it was
yeah,
really useful to be able to learn how the actual mechanics work and that. So yeah, so I enjoy doing that. I also enjoy drawing
yeah.
and particularly doing maps for my world.
Maps.
So
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
bit of an amateur cartographer in that way, I
Yeah,
suppose.
that's
No,
helpful as you're writing, so you can plot it out, can't you? You know where the characters are
yeah,
up to.
I tend to yeah when I'm writing, I tend to get the idea for the story, and one of the first things I do is the map, so that I know where everything is and where they're going to go, and that before I actually start writing the story itself.
Okay.
And it just helps that if they're going from A to B, you've got mountains in the way, you've got a river in the way, you've got to go across the sea. It just adds to the story and helps to for me to visualize where they're going and what they're up against.
Okay. At the moment, I'm reading. My brother sort of told me, insisted that I read David Gemmell novels.
Mm-hmm.
Waylander, and it looks like there's a battle on nearly every other page. Someone's firing an arrow or swinging a sword into someone's ribs. Loving it though.
That can be a lot of fun,
Yeah, yeah,
especially writing. It can be a lot of fun.
yeah. Okay. I know. One chap had a chat with Ken Stark. He said he said it in a sort of menacing voice, sly voice. He said, "I only murder people in my writing," and I felt a bit of a chill. We laughed about it, but I thought,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is, I suppose, sometimes quite useful to get your emotions out on the page.
yeah, yeah, true. Again, before we delve into your writing in more detail, you've had career roles in academia and insurance,
Mm.
but are you now a full-time writer?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that yes, I am. Yes, luckily I have a very supportive husband, and it's allowed me to really indulge in doing this. And absolutely love writing. And I get told sometimes I'm doing it a bit too much, and I should
Yeah,
back off a bit. But it is a passion certainly.
yeah. Do you have a routine? Is it, do you just sit down 9 till 5, or is it whatever? Or you're
Um,
thinking all the time?
I I I tend to write sort of more first thing in the morning, and then sort of later in the day is tends to be how it works.
Okay.
The housework needs doing somewhere.
Does itself sometimes, I
I wish
find.
it did. I wish it did. But yeah, no, I sort of it's more the earlier part of the morning, first half of the morning that I write, and then it's sort of mid afternoon, and then sometimes into the evening. I've
Okay.
I've been known to still be at it at midnight
Yeah.
if something's really flowing. It's sort of you can't stop, so you need to get it down on paper, at least rough draft anyway.
Okay.
So
I've tried myself. I've tried sort of sometimes I've had a few cans of lager, a bit too much to drink, and then wrote or tried to write. Reading it
Mm,
the next morning, it's a load of rubbish. But it takes it in a new direction. I think it was
true.
maybe Hemingway who said, write when drunk and edit when sober, or something like that. Probably total misquote.
That doesn't sound a bad idea
Yeah.
though. Definitely.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Looking through your websites, you've got my background. It's
Mhm.
excellent. Aaron underscore Appleton dot
Oh,
com.
no underscore,
No
just Aerin
underscore.
Apeltun, all one word. Yeah.
That's just the way I've written it. I'm got it in front of me as well. I should have got that correct. But it looks like you're keeping this up to date. Did you design the website? Is it yourself that's maintaining it?
No, that's my wonderful husband again. He's my technical support.
Oh, okay.
All things technical. No, he set it up and he sort of manages it, if you like. But I do tinker around and I put, the little news pages up and edit things and stuff. So I play with it, but he sort of keeps it running properly. Particularly if sometimes I have difficulty, I'm trying to get something on a page, it won't sit right, or I can't
Yeah.
quite get it right, and then he comes along and sorts me out.
Excellent. Yeah,
So
very lucky.
he's the tech guru, but I tinker.
Yeah. Most writers that we chat to, they've got some kind of, a link tree or some kind of a basic website. But yours is very comprehensive, isn't it? It's up to
I,
date. It's full of, new news, sort of an
well,
archive of news.
I try to do that so that it's relevant, because I know that it's very easy to let these things slip and then you suddenly realise you haven't done anything on it
Too
for
much to
sort
do.
of like 8 months or something,
Yeah.
because everything else is happening. But
Yeah.
I do try. I do forget at times, but I do try to keep it up to date as much as possible.
Okay. Should we delve into the writing side then?
Hmm.
Tell me about the Cursed Weapons trilogy.
Well, that came about. I wrote just before the pandemic. I started writing it.
Yeah.
I'm um, I start off by doing quite a big plot,
Yeah.
and then I move on to the writing, and then having edited it, etc., I queried it with Smashbear,
Yeah.
and that was in 21, and in 22, towards the end of 22, I actually signed a contract with them,
Brilliant.
and then for all three books.
Yeah.
And then having got the contract for the first one, I knew where the second two were going to go, but I hadn't actually written them, so I actually then wrote them straight away,
Yeah.
so that I had we had all the right threads going through, having done the developmental edit on the first one, so that I could make sure that it flowed nicely.
Yeah.
And then the first book, The Amethyst Talisman, was then published in the June.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Great cover.
All right. Yep. And then following that, we had the following year, last year, where are we? 24. We had the Malachite Quest, so that was the second book to come out.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
then, literally 10 days ago, the final book was published, The Opal King.
Brilliant.
And a lot of hard work's gone into that by all sorts of people, but
Yeah.
it's been really good. Really enjoyed working on it.
Yeah.
But the whole story centers around 17-year-old Amethyst, and she's a fabled assassin.
Yeah.
And she's been sent to kill a princess. But she's captured and she's found guilty of the princess's assassination and the theft of a fabled fire opal, although she protests her innocence because actually she hadn't done either of these things. But the princess's father, King Finial, he gives her a cursed sword and shield and says that he will free her from the curse if she finds out who it was that murdered his daughter and who the thief was of the fire opal, and bringing the fire opal back to him. And he sends his son, Prince Valerian, with her to keep an eye on her. And Valerian is the king's second son and his third child, and he's very much struggling to find his place in the world. So it's very much about him as well as her, and about the curse and the fact that he knows that, not too many spoilers, but he knows that his father's been lying about breaking it. So they go on a quest to find the fire opal and to break the curse. And their romance is all sort of enemies to lovers, or part of it that then goes through all three books.
Okay.
So with other things like finding her missing brother in between, and
yeah.
all sorts of other things happening, but political intrigue and whatnot. So
that's a great premise. Is all your writers, is that all in the same genre? Is it all UA fantasy?
That's a YA trilogy. I also have had published by Elsewhen Press a YA romantasy, which is called Crystal Bloods.
Okay. Yep.
Which came out in February. And that again is, well, it's a fantasy romance, if you like. The trilogy is also a fantasy romance, really. But I think as I've progressed in my writing, I'm now more doing new adult sort of YA crossover to adult fantasy stories now, and also sort of romantasies as well. So that's sort of where I've sort of settled at the moment. But they all have elements of history. I get lots of inspiration from watching sort of documentaries and about ancient Britain, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, where I get a lot of ideas. And I also like to use the old languages like Latin and Old English and stuff by putting little bits and pieces in them, sprinkled amongst the stories.
Yeah.
The names for the cursed weapons are actually Old English names.
Yeah.
Aldebaran and Quetzalcoatl, and they both mean things like doom,
Yeah. Yeah.
doom and despair and things like that. And so it sort of brings that. And they talk about within the story about, oh, that's the old language and this is what it meant. So I like to feed that sort of thing into the stories to
Okay.
just sort of give it more layers and make
Yeah.
them richer
Okay.
where
So
I can.
there's a bit of research going on then in the background before that, as
Oh,
well as the
the,
maps.
the the little rabbit holes I end up disappearing down to sort of,
Oh.
I'm researching this and I'm researching that, and I'll just see about so and so, and then you suddenly find out I was ended up researching iron gall ink at one point,
What?
from the Middle Ages, and it's sort of like, what am I doing? And you end up with just one little line about it in the book, but it's sort of spent half a day looking at it, but that's part of the fun though, really. I
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
doing that.
True.
So
Yeah. As I mentioned, we've got something in common with our publisher, Luna Eden Publishing.
yeah.
I'll come back to this, but as you've mentioned as well, you've also connected with Elsewhere Press and Smash
Mm.
Bear
Yes,
Publishing.
that's right. Yes.
Most writers will be delighted to connect with a single publisher. You've got a choice. How is that? Is it just as a matter of luck, or is it, the quality of your writing, obviously, as well?
Obviously,
Yeah,
yes. Luck as well.
yeah,
I think part of the problem I have is that I'm neurodiverse and I'm very prolific in my writing.
yeah,
Um, and so I'm constantly looking for outlets, and obviously Smash Bear can't publish everything I write, neither can Elsewhere, because I'm
yeah,
just too prolific. As it is, Smash Bear are publishing another of my books later in the year, which is related to the same universe as the Cursed Weapons trilogy,
yeah.
although it's a new adult one, so for slightly older readers. And Elsewhere are also I've done a contract with them for a new Roman-inspired story
Yeah.
of ancient Rome, and that's actually a duology, and the first one of those is out next year.
Okay,
And we're also in talks for something else as well. And then, of course, there's Luna Eden as well,
brilliant.
with again a sort of upper YA romantasy.
Yeah. What's the running total? You mentioned you're prolific. How many books in total? Are you written short stories as well?
No, I'm in awe of people that can write short stories. If I sit down to write, you're talking full length novels. I'm afraid
Okay.
I can't do it short.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, 80,000 words is short for me. I mean,
Yeah.
the one I've got with Smash Bear later in the year at the moment is sort of knocking on 160. So that's a
160,
bit
did you say?
of a telephone directory, that one.
Just
Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit heavy.
yeah. Yes, well, I did volunteer to make it a duology, but they went,
Yeah,
no, it needs to be a single book. So I'm
yeah.
like, okay, if you want.
Okay. So
So
sometimes when I find a thick book, it's there. It's going to last you
mm,
a good while, a good
mm,
read, but a good long
that's right.
time becomes like a close companion.
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice to, especially in the fantasy
Yeah,
area. It's nice to have sort of big chunky books because you need the world building.
yeah.
If you're doing a contemporary book, everybody knows, what a car is, what a telephone is, etc. You can just go straight in and write it, and you haven't got to try and describe a magic system or
That's true.
describe how this political system works because
Yeah,
it's so completely opposite to anything you expect in this world.
yeah.
So you need those extra words to get that across and to really get your readers deep into the story
Hmm.
so that they can enjoy it more, and it becomes a richer experience for them.
Great
So
explanation.
so yeah, so that's I quite enjoy fantasy because of that, because you can have more words
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay,
make them longer stories.
okay. Is it a running total? Do you have is it what's the figure?
Sorry, what
What's the
say
running
again?
total? The number of books, the total
And
number?
well, I've got 4 published,
Yeah,
and I've got with 2 from Luna Eden coming out,
yeah.
another 2 from Elsewhere, another one from Smash Bear. So I've definitely got another
9.
5.
Yeah.
So it'll be 9 in all, and there's another 2 that are floating around at the moment that are also possibilities, and then there's a couple that I'm working on as well.
Yeah.
In the
When I
early
asked you,
stages.
yeah, when I asked you if you're working, writing full time, you certainly are. You're writing more
Yeah,
than full time by the sound of it. Writing
yeah.
extra time.
No, well, it's I love doing it, so it doesn't seem like work. It's just fun, really.
Do you know what? I'm listening
Editing's
to you.
work.
Yeah, true. It shines through. It really does. It's infectious. Yeah.
Thank you.
Look at the cover there for the Amethyst Talisman. Did you design the covers? They all look, sort of similar. Is that your design?
And yes and no. I gave the initial ideas as to what I'd like to see on the cover, and did a little brief. And then the trilogy covers were all done by AC Graphics. She's a fantastic graphic artist. She did those three. I think she's recently done some covers for, I don't know if you know Jennifer L. Armentrout, the Romantasy author, but
Yeah.
she's recently done some for her covers too.
Yeah.
But she really is very talented. They're brilliant. Crystal Bloods was done by sort of in-house within Elsewhere. They have their own artist
Yeah.
who did that one. And I believe Trish is doing the Lunar Eden one.
Wow. Yeah. Tell me about that. This is the LandSong.
The LandSong, yes, that's the first book. It's a duology.
Yeah.
The LandSong's coming out in October.
Okay.
And then the Song King, the second part, is out. I think it's going to be about February time.
Yeah.
And that's again a romantasy. It's set within a world where there are certain people who can hear the song of the land, hence LandSong. Yeah. And these songs sort of keep the land in order with the powers they get at various times of the day. But then suddenly they're attacked and everything goes to pot. Yeah. Okay. So they're sent on a quest to save the Songstone that sort of keeps everything in balance, but things go obviously awry, as they do in all good books.
Excellent. Yeah, but need a bit of conflict. That's what fiction's all about. Yeah.
Conflict and forbidden love and all that sort of thing.
What fiction do you enjoy reading yourself if you've got time for reading?
I enjoy reading fantasy. Yeah. I sort of enjoy, obviously, Tolkien.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've enjoyed reading Robin McKinley, more recently Mary E. Pearson and Victoria Aveyard, Alex Bracken, those sorts of people.
Yeah.
But I also enjoy historical stories as well, whether that be sort of really a based on real people, or whether it's more of a sort of Bridgerton sort of sort of a history-esque sort of setting. But I do love history as well, so I like reading all those things, which is why I enjoy bringing the history aspect into the stories I do, because of it being fantasy. You can set it in a world that has Dark Ages influences, or it has Roman influences, or whatever. It's it's fun to be able to do that. Yeah. So it also makes the world more relatable to people, because you know what the Roman Empire was. Therefore, if it's in that sort of world and you're talking about something, arenas and gladiators and things like that, you immediately know what it is, rather than being something so out there that you're having to spend half the book trying to describe it.
Yeah.
So so I enjoy doing that. So yes, definitely history.
Okay.
But I'm not against a bit of sci-fi. I like that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the same with films as well, and movies.
Oh yeah.
Same genre. Yeah.
Everything from the Lord of the Rings to Star Trek and Star Wars, and I love all that. Plus all the historical, as I say, Bridgerton, things like that. That's all.
Okay.
I enjoy all that sort of thing too, and things like Pride and Prejudice, and going back to Jane Austen and that. It's all good stuff.
That's some range there. Yeah.
There is, yes.
What was your favourite Star Trek series?
Although I was kind of brought up on reruns of the original series, I'd have to say that I'm slightly torn between the Next Generation and Voyager, actually.
Yeah.
I love both of those.
Yeah. Sort of Voyager for me.
Yeah. I love Captain Janeway. She was fantastic. And so yes, very much her, but also I also very much love the Next Generation crew as well. And it's been quite, I don't know if you've seen the more recent Picard stories.
Yeah,
we had a little bit of mix of everybody. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it seems odd as well. The latest Star Trek ones, like people of the crew swearing at each other. It sort of jarred me a bit, because I'm brought up, the original series. I've watched all of them about 100 times, each of them. I can't imagine Captain Kirk, effing and jeffing on the ship.
No, that is true. That is true. But yes, at least I don't have to have polystyrene rocks to contend with these days.
That's true, yeah. I love the Next Generation. Not the first couple of seasons, though. I found it a bit wooden, a bit theatrical.
Yeah.
The staging of it.
Yeah, it hit its stride after sort of about series 5, 6, I would have said.
Yeah.
after the Borg appeared,
Yeah,
then it really hit its stride. So
the
after that,
Borg,
that was great.
that's the greatest creation on Star Trek for me. A square spaceship that they
Yeah,
live in.
I know.
Wow, it's imagination. I love it.
Yes, my spaceship is a brick.
Yeah,
So yes, obviously that's going to be great, but it works. I don't know
yeah,
why, but
yeah,
it works.
yeah, yeah. We are the Borg. Love it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to go off on a tangent now. What are your thoughts on the impact of AI, artificial intelligence, for writers and creators in general? Do you see it as a threat, as a tool?
I was going to say, how long have you got? I, I think it has its place,
Yeah,
definitely has its place. But I think when it comes to the creative arts and writing, painting, drawing, music, I'm not really quite sure it has any business being there.
mm,
Really, I don't see how it can create things. There's no humanity behind it. There's no emotion. You can't have. There's no human experience
yeah,
to be able to draw on for your stories, for art, for music.
yeah.
So I don't think much of it in that department. I think
Okay.
sort of in academia, there's obviously certain areas where it's
Yeah,
going to be incredibly useful and it's going to make a world of difference with things. But when it comes to the arts,
yeah,
you can't do away with the author and
yeah,
with the developmental editor and the line editor and the copy editor, because that's it won't work in the same way. For instance, speech, it's going to pick up speech and say this is wrong when
yeah,
actually that's how people can speak or
yeah.
would
True.
speak,
Yeah.
and it's going to flag things up and change things and or not do it as we would.
Mm.
And I just no.
I don't know. I don't know why. I'm thinking of the Oasis concert last night. It was like headline news on the BBC all around the world.
Mm,
You
mm,
can't see anyone going back and, the AI, Mr. AI, his song, and
mm,
people going back to
yeah,
saying, "Oh, I wish he'd sing that song again." It's
yeah,
not going to happen,
no,
is it? It can't
no,
be
it's not.
replaced. Yeah,
It's not.
yeah,
So yeah, as I say, it has its place, but
yeah,
I'm not sure it's in the creative arts. But
yeah.
people will argue with me.
It might too. I've tinkered with it. I've done things like I've dropped, like I said, here's a synopsis of a story. Can you
Mm,
write chapter one for me? This is
mm,
used in Copilot on Microsoft Edge.
yeah.
And I've been sort of scared by the result. And I think I've said in the style of, I don't know, Hemingway, in the style
Mm,
of Lee Child, and it jumps it out. And I think, I'm scarily impressed. And I'm
mm,
thinking,
mm,
how much more advanced is this going to be in 6 months, in a
mm,
year's time? And, it's
yeah.
developing, minute, second by second.
Mm,
But as
mm.
you say, they can't replace the human aspect of it.
You can't. I think the dangerous thing about it is I was reading. It was only during the week, I think, some university had been doing some research, and for people that were using AI for things,
Yeah.
their actual their brains were being changed by the fact they weren't having to think and they weren't having to critical thinking
Yeah,
and problem
yeah,
solving and things like that,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
their brain capacity had been reduced
Mm,
even after sort of like 6 months of using it.
yeah.
So it's actually in that respect it's actually quite dangerous. But we could lose a lot of what a lot of what makes us, a lot of our creativity if we're not
Mm,
careful. So
true.
um
Yeah.
there we are.
Yeah,
Don't
that
know.
is a warning for it. I'm thinking as well,
Yeah.
well, back in my time in school, many, many years ago, we
Mhm.
had to do maths. We had to work things out on paper and in our heads.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
calculator came along and
Yeah.
basically don't have to anymore.
Mm,
And
mm.
I'm just thinking how sort of lazy I can be as well. And previously, 30 years ago, I'd go to the library for information. We've got
Yes.
instant information at our
Yeah.
fingertips, which
Yeah.
means in theory, we don't have to go away and think about it and ponder
Mm,
on it or make
mm.
connections. We can just bring it up.
Yeah. Which is it's a shame really in many
Hmm.
respects. I know it does help and makes things quicker, and
Yeah,
yes, it helps with some of my rabbit holes that I can Google my iron gall ink, and sort of the information is there at my fingertips. I haven't got to go to the library to find out, but
yeah,
you are still doing that research though. You are still having to find the information and learn from it and put it together to put into your story. So in some ways that's not much different to opening a book. It's just easier to access, but you're
true.
still using it, you're still thinking, you're still creating from it. So
Hmm. Is it plans for, have you ever been approached or have you approached any film or television company? Would that be your ambition as a writer? 'Cause every writer
I
I know.
I don't know if it's actually an ambition as such. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, it would be nice if your books were made into films or
yeah,
TV. I haven't ever approached anybody. No one's ever approached me, but Elsewhen do have recently started getting connections within a TV production company. They've
oh,
been talking to them,
yeah,
and they're actually looking at, I think, all of their books to see what might be suitable. So fingers crossed for
Oh,
that.
definitely, yeah, 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 definitely.
But we'll just have to wait and see. But it's something that it is a possibility, certainly for Crystal Bloods. But
Yeah,
open to offers if anybody's interested in
yeah,
the others.
yeah. Good luck and bon chance with that. Definitely.
Well, yeah, yeah. I'm happy just sticking with the writing.
Okay. When you mentioned the word sticking, I'm looking at the sticky notes behind you. On
Oh,
the
yes.
mechanics of your writing, do you use sticky notes by any chance? And
I,
notebooks, your
as I
plots?
say, that's my daughter that does that. She loves her sticky notes. I
Yeah.
don't tend to.
No? All right.
Um, I'm not
I
really
find you can't work without them all over the wall
oh,
exactly
really.
as your daughter did. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, I tend to have a Word document that I'm constantly adding ideas and scenes to, and using as my plot
Your Bible
basis.
is your Bible, is it? Sort of thing.
In a way, yeah. But I mean, I certainly work by plotting.
Yeah.
And in fact, my plots quite often end up being sort of like 25,000 words by the time I
What? For
finish
the
them.
plot? That's
Because
half a
I'm
novel by
const
itself.
well, I know, yes, it is, isn't it? But it makes writing the actual novel a lot quicker.
Ah, yeah,
But
true. You've done the
it's
groundwork, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's I just find that I have ideas pop into my head for a scene,
Yeah.
and so I've got to get that down on paper, and I just slot it into where I think it's going to come in within the story, so within the document, so it all ends up. I don't tend to do a chapter by chapter thing, but I must admit the most recent one I have put some little chapter headings as to this is what I'm going to do here, 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 and here.
Yeah.
And then as I think about it and it simmers away, I end up, right, that could be a great scene in here. So
Yeah.
in that chapter, so then I'll fill that little bit in. And so the Word document gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But as I said before, I mean, I start with the idea of the basic idea for the story and the characters, and then I do the map. And then I'm sort of constantly adding things to the plot, my plot document as I go along. And then I try and do sort of character studies as well, and a bit about the world and world building before I actually start writing. So of course by then that's perhaps been, well, for me it's like 2 or 3 months, and so
Yeah.
my plot is now 20,000 words.
Yeah.
So when I actually sit down to write it, for me it's a very quick process. I mean, Amethyst I actually wrote in 13 days.
What?
The first draft.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a messy
Yeah.
first draft, but it was the first draft is for me is usually about 75,000 words.
Yeah.
Now, when I go back and edit, I quite often add like 20, 30,000 words to that.
You add the words, you're not taking them
I
out.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. A lot of people
That's
do it the other
difference.
way,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I end up expanding on things. I've sort of put in all they're crossing the moor or something, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm adding in this ruined cottage, and they're going to visit it, and then this is going to happen, and so the little things get added as I go along.
Yeah.
It is fair to say that Amethyst was the quickest I'd ever written.
Yeah.
And it was actually over 14 days. Halfway through, my husband told me I was looking a bit boss-eyed and I needed to have a day off. So I think I still wrote a couple of hours that day.
Yeah.
But usually it's because I've got this big plot document. It usually is perhaps about a month, 6 weeks to write, depending on what else is going on, to write
Okay.
first draft. But then, as I say, I'll go back and as I edit, I'm adding in quite a bit as I go. So yes,
Yeah.
it goes from sort of like 75,000 words to 100 or 90,000 or something. So it's I'm not starting out trying to write 100,000.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
makes it quicker in as well. So
Yeah.
but usually it's nearer sort of like a month to 6 weeks. But as I say, because I've got the plot there, and
Yeah.
I take literally at places, I'm just taking a sort of 4 or 5 page scene out of that and putting it straight into the manuscript. It obviously cuts down the time it takes to write.
Yeah.
But even so, I still do a certain amount of pantsing as I go.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll be I'm at A, I need to get to C, but I'm not quite sure where B is, and you sometimes just have to let the characters get on with it.
Yeah.
Which sounds a bit odd, but you just start writing and let them take you there sometimes, because sometimes I think they know best. They certainly go off on a tangent on their own sometimes. We're sort of, this is supposed to be happening. Well, no, I think we think we want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, no.
That's where the magic comes in, isn't it? Really, that's you get into the groove of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you try and work out how you're going to get them out of the
Yeah.
predicament they've got themselves into, and it's all.
The first time it happened to me, it was a shock. I had a scene written. I'm sort of like you. I have sort of headings for chapter, break down into bullet points for each chapter, and I had a particular character. Was her name Rhonda? Rhonda, she comes in.
Hmm.
I just coming into a scene late anyway. I'm sort of
Yeah.
typing away, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Tommy's listening to music on his record player. And then I typed, and then there was a knock on his bedroom door. Rhonda walked
Hmm.
in. And wait a second. You're not due in yet. You're not due into the end of the 5 pages. What are you doing? It worked. I couldn't take it out. I
Yeah.
had to sort of carry on. It just worked
Mm.
perfectly. But I
Mm.
had to go and have a long walk around the garden and ponder life and things. What just happened? It's freaky.
It is weird how things like that happen. You are expecting for something so and so to happen next, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden someone's appeared that you aren't
yeah,
expecting, or
yeah,
someone's left, or something happens, and it's like, well, now what am I going to do? I wasn't expecting this.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
but your character's sort of demanding that no, we're
yeah,
going to do this instead.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and you go with it, and as you say, invariably, it actually turns out to be
yeah.
the better route really than the one you'd originally intended. So
Mm.
go, as you say, go with the flow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely special. Yeah. It looks like time caught up with us. The 30 minutes has absolutely flown. I've really
It
enjoyed it.
has.
It's felt
Yeah,
like about
so
2 minutes. But final question from me. A new writer, someone who's got aspirations of becoming a writer and novelist. What advice would you offer them?
I might start with a bit of Star Trek, seeing as we've talked about it in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
book. It's sort
yeah,
of persistence isn't necessarily futile, is probably what I would say there. But a lot of it is about persistence. One of the first things I did was actually take a couple of writing courses, so that I really learned how to structure plots and how to create character and character arcs and pacing and everything. And you can glean an awful lot from the internet,
mm,
and an awful lot on sort of YouTube and places like that. But I took a course, a couple of young adult courses with Right Mentor,
yeah,
and they were really good, and it's a really lovely, welcoming atmosphere. At that point, they were basically children's writers, but they are now expanding more into adult as well. But their hub that they have so much interesting information. They have talks from agents and from publishers, and so you can get an awful lot of information and help from other writers too,
yeah,
because you're all in the same boat.
yeah,
There's a
true.
lot of good camaraderie on there. So I sort of went with them, did some courses.
Mm,
So learning as much as you can, and then it's about writing and reading.
mm.
It's not just about the writing. The reading is very important too.
Yeah,
Read as
totally
much
agree.
as you can,
Yeah,
um, and then write as much as you can to hone your craft, find your voice, as
mm,
they say.
yeah,
But and also partly from the Right Mentor courses, I think also if you can develop a sort of group of writer buddies,
mm,
if you like, who you can exchange work with, beta read for, and they can beta read for you. And they're also they're people who you can understand what you're doing, what you're going through, particularly if you're in the querying trenches
yeah,
when you get there. And you can share the highs and lows with each other
mm,
and cheer each other on and everything. And I think they're very important. I actually found Lunar Eden because Estelle Tudor,
oh yeah,
whose book Archaeology of the Stars is out later this month.
yeah,
She and I actually met through one of the Right Mentor courses
mm,
around 2000, and ever since then we've shared stories and done things together. And she was the one who actually pointed me in Trish's direction.
okay,
So it's having people like that who you can chat to and exchange ideas with and exchange information about publishers, about agents if you're heading down those roads.
yeah,
But just general, well, I think the thing is we both just love reading each other's stories at this point.
yeah. Always helps. Yeah,
And to be able to just she says she's quite nitpicky with me sometimes, but I need that. We all need that, I think, because you're not going to make the story better if someone just sits there and says, "Oh, it's wonderful."
yeah, true.
That's not helping you. You
Yeah,
need someone who sits there and says, "Yeah, no, this bit, or there's a whole plot hole here, or this character really wouldn't say that at this point."
yeah,
You need someone to call you out on those things.
mm,
So if you could find a little group, well, even one, but a little group of writer friends who similar sort of style of writing, similar things, enjoy, fantasy, or whether it be
yeah,
historical or
yeah,
thrillers or whatever,
yeah.
you can really bounce ideas off each other and really help each other out, and it's also makes it a lot of fun as well.
So that's
So,
excellent advice.
but it's it certainly worked for me, and it's just also a matter of continuing just to hone your craft and continue learning. I
Yeah,
don't think it ever stops really.
yeah, true, true. Yeah. Um, Erin, on that note, looks like Sam has caught up with us. But let's keep in touch as we have been doing. But
Yeah,
thanks very much. I really enjoyed your company.
yeah, and you too. It's been fun.
Oh,
Thanks.
great, brilliant. But for now, cheers.
Okay, bye bye. Take
Bye
care.
now. And you. Bye
Bye.
now. Bye.